I'm gonna ask you a question. What do you like about your favorite Pokemon? Well, you probably love its design, be it cute, cool, scary, or silly. Maybe you have a fascination with the Pokemon's inspiration or the lore behind it. Hell, maybe it just kicks ass in battle and you love tearing through the game with it. But when I look at a Pokemon like Glalie, I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to latch onto. That's not a knock, I know there are Glalie fans out there, but truly I don't know what to think. This feels like the classic bad Pokemon design argument where you hear it's literally just blank with eyes, and while I won't say I dislike what I'm looking at, I can't really say I understand it. Glalie is most likely based on a combination of several types of Oni, a type of Japanese demon, a Goalie mask, and potentially a pun on rice balls, Onigiri, and Glalie being an ice ball. And all that's just... it's a bit much, Glalie, I'm sorry, but you're coming on a bit strong there. Even the name Glalie doesn't feel quite right. It's a combination of glacier and goalie, Glalie. I don't know, it just feels like one of those Pokemon where something got lost in translation. But maybe the gameplay is where Glalie shines. Well, we're a late game mono ice type who can click Ice Beam against those late game dragons, and that's about it. Which is fine I guess, but just about any ice or water type can do that, so we're not exactly sticking out. But what really gets my goat about Glalie is the stats, because hands up, this is one of the worst things you can do to a Pokemon in my opinion. I have no earthly idea why our stats are 80 across the board. It's obviously not a bad stat total, it's actually one of the best we've ever seen in this series, but like, where's the personality, the variety, what's supposed to gravitate me to this? For certain Pokemon, I get it. Genetic Pokemon like Ditto and Mew, absolutely no problem there, can transform into anything. Man-made Pokemon like Castform and Silvally, yeah, makes sense. Even certain gimmicky Pokemon like Spinda, 60 across the board which all add up to 360 because he spins around. Genius. Not a fun Pokemon to use mind you, but good meme, credit where it's due. But I'm genuinely asking if any of you know why Glalie was cursed with such a boring stat spread. The closest I can guess is because he's round, but like, so is Electrode? Maybe if something made just a little more sense about Glalie, it'd be more appreciated. Instead, we're left with this angry looking chunk of ice who can click Ice Beam I guess, but there just isn't much here. Our TM learn set is okay I guess, but we're clinging onto that Earthquake TM for dear life. And it's even worse considering the fact that Gen 4 sets Glalie up against a much more, for lack of a better word, attractive split evolution with a much cooler secondary type and a half decent stat spread. When all the Snow stands are tending toward Frostlass, it's easy to see why Glalie is left so cold and bitter. But today I say Glalie, I got you. Today we're going to be seeing if we can make something out of the most average ice type on the market. So starting off, we've got our stat spread. I may not like it, I may not get it, but I'm still not breaking our golden rule. Glalie's base stats will not be changed. But the question then becomes, what does one do with a flatlined Pokemon like Glalie? Where do I take such a directionless Pokemon? Well, after mulling it over, I think that the answer should be in the eye of the beholder. I think the biggest misfire with Glalie is that all of its stats are usable, but it ends up just clicking Ice Beam in the end anyway, like any other ice type. It's trying to be all these things rolled into one, but we're just not getting the versatility that we're seeing on the box. Ideally, a Glalie can fit into several molds depending on the player's needs, a Swiss Army knife of a Pokemon. Can he hit hard, absorb hits, outspeed? Meh. He can do okay at everything, but he needs to be given the tools to pull all these things off. So, where do we start? Well, how's about we pull down our evolution level to a nice round number like 30? 42 never made much sense to me as Snorunt is almost unusable this late in the game. We're going to be granting much earlier access to Snorunt in our run, and even still, a Frostlass evolution is available way earlier, as in Platinum specifically, you can get a Dawnstone with only 3 badges. So let's check the abilities then, of which Glalie has 2. Neither Inner Focus or Ice Body are really doing it for me, even in our first form. Ice Body can stay for now I guess, but I think that Snow Cloak is a much more appropriate ability for the, cloaked Pokemon who hides in the snow. But once evolved, I'd like to get a bit more aggressive. The evasive Snorunt will be granted Levitate upon evolving. Glalie may not have much going on, but like any good iceberg, it does indeed float, and I think that making him a slightly better switch in against ground types is pretty useful. If Frostlass can have immunities, then why can't we? But for the bulkier build, the Snorunt who've weathered the storm will be blessed with Intimidate. I am really hesitant to use such a broken ability, but if there's ever a Pokemon that deserves Intimidate, design-wise, it's probably this one. Both of these abilities make us, at the very least, a better pivot. It's very rare to see a situation that calls for a switch into a pure Ice type, and so I think that these abilities at least help us get our foot in the door. To that end, we're gonna jump into the moveset. Again, we'll be starting as a Snorunt until level 30, and I will remain faithful to the fact that we're a split evolution. After level 30, Glalie and Frostlass will still learn moves at the exact same level. I can't only keep Glalie in mind here. No issue with Powder Snow at level 1, but I will swap Leer for Defense Curl. I just feel like this little runt is more likely to bundle up than hit harder. I'm also down with the rest of our early game moves, to be honest, but after Icy Wind, I would like to change some things. We usually learn Headbutt, Protect, and Ice Fang at levels 19, 21, and 28 respectively. I'd like to ditch Headbutt and pull down Protect and put Hail in its original spot. As the worst of all weather moves, I really don't see much harm in pulling it this early on. We'll probably get a lot more mileage out of Hail in our first form than our last, and this lets us fit into a weather team quite nicely if we want to. Next up is usually Ice Fang at level 28, but I'd actually like to swap it for the underrated Ice Ball and pull it a bit earlier to 26. This is one of those stupidly exclusive ice moves that hardly any Pokemon can learn. They're a lot more picky with this move compared to its rock-type brother, Rollout, which can be learned by tons of Pokemon whose rolling ability seems questionable at best. I think that we can easily get away with Ice Ball here to give us some pretty fun synergy with the aforementioned Defense Curl. Next up is level 30, our evolution level, where I'm gonna have us learn Curse. A pretty interesting move for Snorunt in particular, as this move can work one of two ways depending which evolution path the player chooses. When used by a Ghost type, Curse acts as a dastardly status move that takes out a quarter of the opponent's max health per turn. But when used by a non-Ghost type like Glalie, it boosts our attack and defense while lowering our speed. I think that the stat drop kinda works thematically, staying balanced with a fair trade-off. It's good for attacking, it's good for bulking up, even dropping our speed can be useful sometimes. Just a good move to keep our options open. Next up, Crunch and Ice Beam are there when we need them at levels 31 and 37, some solid moves on both the physical and the special side. Hail is usually at level 40, but we've already learned this a while ago, so I think I'd like to bring in Haze. We'll almost certainly get no mileage out of this in-game, but I still think it's a good pick for such a neutral Pokemon that wants to be a safe pivot. I'm trying to cover all bases here, and I just think that bringing the stat changes back to normal fits well for such a balanced Pokemon, despite some anti-synergy with Intimidate. And I'm actually pretty okay with our last two moves in Blizzard and Sheer Cold. The latter isn't the most reliable move, but it honestly kinda works for Glalie because it can get the kill on anything regardless of matchup. Just throw Glalie in as a Hail Mary when you've got no other option. I like it. Lastly, I do want to sneak in Stealth Rock to our set via TM. Another move I doubt we'll use in-game, but I just feel like this plus Spikes via breeding opens up another niche for us as a half-decent Intimidate lead. Just an honorable mention, really. So that's gonna do it for my Glalie Glow Up, a perfectly sculpted hodgepodge of a Glalie ready to take Sinnoh by Snowstorm. We've thrown everything at the wall, but will it stick? As always, I play by these rules and we'll be leaning on Glalie as much as we can to see what they're made of. There's always a sense of togetherness felt throughout the Sinnoh region this time of year. Against the harsh northern climate, warmth is found in the emotional bonds formed between people and Pokemon. However, there is one Pokemon grown infamous amongst the townspeople of Twinleaf. A Pokemon who chooses to remain in icy isolation. A Pokemon who has remained in hibernation until one day caught off guard and captured by yours truly. I'd like you to meet Winter the Snorunt. She's a very shy and reserved Pokemon, spending most of her days alone in the wilderness. At a glance, she doesn't seem much different from the average Snorunt, as her Ice Body ability will remain as is until she evolves. She may be a little rough around the edges, but I think an adventure with some friends will put a smile on her face, though she is keeping a safe distance from the heat of my Chimchar, Boots. In due time, I'm sure these two will get along. Surely, the crown of Pokemon Champion is enticing enough even to a homebody like Winter, and Boots is a very capable Pokemon who is sure to start our journey on the right foot. And on our merry way to Route 201, we happen upon a chipper little Bidoof named Tinsel looking to lend a helping hand. With these two at our side, it looks like we can go as far as we want, but it looks like Winter isn't quite warming up to the idea yet. Give her time. On our way out of Jubilife City, we stumble into our first real berry fight where Winter takes the lead. Early Ice Stab is very refreshing as we make quick work out of his lead Starly. Piplup takes the field, but Winter doesn't budge despite the bad type matchup. Doesn't look like she's much of a team player, as the little sprout stubbornly sets up her defense curls and double teams before taking Piplup down 1 HP at a time. When you're a lone wolf, I guess you are forced to resort to cheap tactics like this, but hopefully we can teach Winter to fight with a bit more honor. Shortly thereafter, we arrive in the bustling Orberg city to fight for our first gym badge. By now, Winter has upgraded to Icy Wind, which can blow through Rourke's rock types. I will say that Snorunt actually does make for a pretty great early game Pokemon, as the special based ice attacks are coming in clutch here. Onix sets up Stealth Rocks, but once again, it seems like switching out never really crossed Winter's mind. The pure rock type Cranidos won't be weak to ice and does strike first with Leer, but we can slow the fight down to our level with one Icy Wind. It's a couple turns of tit for tat, but the timid tot comes out on top. Pretty impressive win for our little cub. Looks like she can carry her own weight after all. Still though, the vibes are still a bit uneasy with my crew of Pokemon, and we really could use a little spark of joy. As if to answer, a little Pachirisu stops by to say hello. Joy's positive attitude is always an inspiration around the Valley Windworks. She's always in the giving mood, handing out free items as a little pick-me-up when her friends are down. Winter doesn't seem much enthused by this new addition, but our teammates are outright jumping for joy as we frolic through the Floroma flowers. Surely Joy's joining will brighten the days ahead. But it's not all fun and games, as we need to take out Commander Mars at the Valley Windworks, but Winter starts us off on the right foot. Her icy winds make quick work out of her lead Zubat while shaking off a Toxic thanks to a held Pecha Berry. Purugly tags in and flinches with Fake Out since our Snorunt isn't carrying Inner Focus. On top of that, its ability Thick Fat makes our ice moves only half as effective. Looks like Winter is backed into a corner, and that's when the newly evolved Boots tags in to fend off the killing blow, heroically putting the big cat to bed with a couple of mock punches. Winter is a bit taken aback and doesn't know what to say, but the look on her face is thanks enough. With the team finally gelling, we jaunt over to Eterna City, and the joint is absolutely jumpin'. The whole city is just vibing with this festive funk, and it just so happens that it's the singing of a jingling chingling that's got this town in a stir. Carol's spirits are always high this time of year. It's always been her dream to jingle all the way to the top of Sinnoh's charts, and she's already halfway off the ground with her levitate ability. I'm not sure if we can match her skills in the sound booth, but we're more than happy to count her into our choir. Welcome aboard. Next on our list is Gym Leader Gardenia, which is a favorable matchup for Snorunt, and she makes quick work out of her first two Pokemon, but her ace Roserade is on another level. We shake off a Stun Spore with a held Pecha Berry and start the onslaught of Icy Winds, but we are losing health to Leech Seed as well. Winter knows this is a fight she can't win, but she still doesn't flinch as her health drops to 0. I guess our itty bitty ice pick is still a solo act. Whether intentional or not, she's made easy pickings for Carol's Curtain Call as she claims us our second badge. After that, we've got a match against Galactic Commander Jupiter, but this is another fight that's just too tough for our little Winter Soldier. She makes quick work of the Zubat, but she's clearly outgunned by her ace Skuntank, and it's not long before the rest of the team has to step in. It must be tough being trapped in a Snorunt-shaped prison. Winter didn't ask to do all this fighting, and maybe it's her weak body that's got her so glum. I can only hope that we can hold out a little bit longer until evolution. It's not long after until we arrive in Hearthome City to face off against Fantina and her ghost types, and I give the nod to Joy to start things off. She's gonna chip away at her lead Duskull with a Spark before dropping its attack all the way down to -6 with Charm. I then pivot into Boots, who can taunt the little ghost to prevent it from using Will-O-Wisp. With the trap set, Winter tags in, starting with a Defense Curl, taking a bit of damage in the process. But at level 26, Winter can finally get things rolling with Ice Ball, its power doubled thanks to Defense Curl, and the first two are easily enough to draw first blood. Sensing danger, Fantina brings out the big guns next, and Miss Magius lands a massive Shadow Ball, but the Winter Warrior wears it and claps back with Ice Ball number 3 to steamroll it. Haunter is last, but a non-crit Shadow Ball isn't enough, and Winter connects the last Ice Ball to take it home. That's a win well won for the little snowball that could. Finally, we're getting some new moves that are actually making a difference, and on our way to Veilstone City, Winter finally reaches level 30 and learns Curse. This is a big moment for her, as she finally evolves into a stone cold killer. The rest of our team is a bit off-put by her new look, but hopefully it was worth the wait. This is the path Winter has chosen to walk, and we can only hope it's the right one. Unfortunately, we are starting off on the back foot once again versus Maylene, whose fighting types pose a tough matchup, but they are all physical, and our new ability Intimidate can wall them pretty well. Carol starts us off with a yawn before Winter breaks the ice with our newly learned Curse while Meditite falls asleep. Fortunately for Winter, fighting doesn't actually resist the cold, so a pair of Ice Balls takes it out no problem. We surprisingly outspeed the ensuing Machoke, but even at -1, it survives with a Sliver and gets some chip off on us before going down. Her ace Lucario takes the field, but ladies and gentlemen, this is Ice Ball number 5, and it's easily enough to send this dog downward, leaving the fighting gym completely flattened. That was a nice little power spike with some much needed help from Intimidate. It's great to finally have an ability that's actually being used. Let's keep this rolling. Once we touch down in Pastoria, a berry battle awaits. It's an Intimidate mirror match against Staravia, but an Icy Wind takes the bird down. Barry's got a pretty diverse team developing, and Winter simply can't deal with all of it. Tinsel lends a helping hand against Ponyta, but Winter takes the spotlight back against Roselia. Icy Wind could handle this thing just fine, but Winter chooses to dig in, handling things herself with Ice Ball. This makes things a bit dicey as Barry's last Pokemon Prinplup takes the field, a pretty defensive Pokemon who also resists ice. Leech Seed from Roselia makes it a close call as well, but Brute Force does indeed win the day. I'm glad that Winter's enjoying her evolved form, but it's important to remember that an ice type just isn't going to be able to solo a game this challenging. Crasher Wake is next on the docket, and we lead with 2 titans of the industry, both flexing Intimidate right off the rip. However, we've got the better special attack stat and can hit him with our new move Ice Beam for about half health. Intimidate lets me pivot into our little friend Joy just a bit more easily, and Joy sparks Joy as the quad effective damage is enough to fell the fish. The ground-type Quagsire looks to exact revenge, but Carol chimes in, reading the ground move, and evades it with Levitate. With Quagsire cornered, Carol can belt out a quad-effective Grass Knot for a nice solo effort. Floatzel is his finisher, and this thing is a scary mixed attacker himself. Reading the crunch, I can pivot into Winter to let Intimidate do its thing. I can then tag in Tinsel to resist the incoming brine. There's really nothing stopping me from repeating this process several times over to drop Floatzel's attack down to -3, rendering it physically useless. Eventually, Tinsel gets bored and gets off a yawn to put it to sleep, and Carol can take the stage once again for her finale, finishing the fight with a couple more Grass Knots. With such a tight-knit team, Intimidate proves incredibly helpful, letting them all swap in safely. A nice team effort all around. Up next, we make the foggy trek up to Celestic Town, where we have to face off against Galactic Boss Cyrus. Unfortunately for him, some guy lent me his glasses, and there just isn't much that can stop a +1 stab Ice Beam this early in the game. These choice specs will be another tool in Winter's ever-expanding belt, and I'm really glad to see the balance of both the physical and special attacks so far. With that win, we feel good enough to walk on water, wandering our way to Canalave City, where Barry welcomes us with open arms. He's packing a pretty well-rounded and fully evolved team at this point, but so are we. Honestly, there really isn't much to this one, as we're basically just clicking Ice Beam on the Pokemon who are weak to ice and Intimidate pivoting around for the Pokemon who aren't. Not a bad showing, and it is nice to see Winter sharing the load, but hopefully we can mix in more than just Ice Beam down the stretch. Next in line is Byron and his Steel types, and this is the 3rd gym in a row that's countered Ice. I'm kinda over that, so I take a detour back to Wayward Cave to dig up an item that can help us tip the scales, the Grip Claw. Just kidding, the Earthquake TM, which you can slap onto Winter to tear through Byron's armored Pokemon. It's a pretty big investment, and I'm not really sure we'll hang on to it forever, but nobody else on the team is really going to use it, so why not? Easy win. But it turns out that Team Galactic has an Earthquake TM of their own, and they've let it loose on Lake Valor. That means we're on the Galactic Goose Chase around the region, taking on a couple of commanders. However, neither of them are threatening enough to prevent Winter from imposing her will, as Saturn and Mars are taken out pretty handily. There's one lake left, so we make the northern pilgrimage up through Mount Coronet, making our way through some of the thickest clouds we've ever seen. It looks like all this smoke was born from the blunt of a blowharding Barboach. Yuletide doesn't really get up to much this time of year. Or any time of year. He's never really been the most ambitious guy. He kinda just moved into this basement under Mount Coronet without paying rent, and no one's really said anything. That's an amazing story, but if you're not doing anything, we could really use some more good vibes. And honestly, our team kinda does make a pretty killer blunt rotation. You'll tide us over for the time being. With our final slot filled, we make the trek up to Snowpoint City, where we can face off against Gym Leader Candace, who's packing some ice types of her own. I tee off with Tinsel against her lead Sneasel and get off a yawn before tagging in Winter. That ends up not working out for me, as Sneasel wakes up on turn 2 anyway, but I spam a bunch of curses nonetheless. Soon enough, we can shake off physical moves no problem before Sneasel falls to an Earthquake, sending out Piloswine. Ordinarily, we'd outspeed this thing easily, but our speed is crippled thanks to all the bad words we've been dishing out. But that's actually what we want, because we've made a little detour on our way up, grabbing a Gyro Ball TM from the Veilstone Game Corner, a super effective Steel-type move that grows in power based on how slow we are. Since we can manipulate our speed to our will, we've crafted ourselves a pretty powerful tool to deal with the rest of Candace's team, including our icy adversary Frostlass. Nice to see even more synergy with Curse there, digging deep into our TM move pool. Not bad. After that, it's time to take on Team Galactic head on. I'll spare you the details of our Veilstone venture, as the hike up Mount Coronet is more important. At the apex, we reach Spear Pillar, where we're dragged into a double battle with Barry against Mars and Jupiter. To start off against their Bronzong brothers, I bring in Boots, who starts spreading some holiday cheer, punching Barry's Munchlax in the face until it stops moving. This sends a telepathic message to Barry that he should use non-worthless Pokemon instead, and Rapidash takes the field. I do accidentally attack Rapidash again with a Flame Wheel for more friendly fire, and Boots pays the price getting taken out with an extra sensory. Luckily, Joy can jump in and throw in some Thunderbolts to gain momentum. Once both aces are on the field, we go for the kill with Winter, who sets the scene with a nice double Intimidate. From there, we can easily polish off the rest of the fight with some minty fresh Ice Beams to take it home. But we're not quite done there, as it looks like Cyrus has used the red chain from the Pokemon he tortured to open up a portal to hell. Come on bro, read the room. I guess we're chasing him through the underworld for one last fight. He starts off with Houndoom and I counter with Boots to make quick work of it with a close combat. That draws in Gyarados, which means it's winter time. I decide to get a little bit cute and get off a Stealth Rock learned via TM by defeating Rourke. It's pretty well used in this fight specifically, as Cyrus's entire team is actually weak to Rock. With Gyarados' attack taken down a peg, we can tag in Joy safely to take advantage of the quad weakness to Electric. Weavile takes the field now, so we bring in Boots to break the ice. Crobat is next up, so we switch back into Joy with a pit stop at Winter. Joy's stats are pretty pathetic this late in the game, but with the Stealth Rock chip from Winter, she's got just enough to take Crobat down. Last is Honchkrow, but that's no counter, as our little bundle of Joy has won the day. Well, it looks like our band of merry men, and also Winter, have saved the region, and we can continue eastward to Sunyshore City, where our final gym battle awaits. Looks like Yuletide's looking to pull a bit of weight, as he deals with Volkner's first two Pokemon with Earthquake, which he's learned naturally. The physical threats are more Winter speed, so she switches in versus Electivire. Well, actually, they're not quite her speed, as the Demoness is just a bit faster and can throw out some EQs of her own while shaking off the super effective moves quite easily, both thanks to Intimidate and the stat drop from Luxray's Rivalry. It's good to know that our mediocre stats are still holding up okay, and we don't always need to curse spam. Some decent production against a neutral matchup to earn us our final badge. Nice. From here, the only way is up Route 223 and through Victory Road. The Pokemon League awaits, but we've got to get through Barry one final time. Winter has become a great counter to his lead Staraptor and even does solid damage to the incoming Rapidash. However, a Will-O-Wisp is pretty crippling, so we have to leave it to Beaver to finish it off. It's another instance of pivoting Winter in and out against the Pokemon that are weak to Ice, which isn't many of them unfortunately, and most of the legwork falls to Boots. Whether she likes it or not, Winter is going to have to become a team player in these final fights, as Platinum is just too tough a game to clear single-handedly. Regardless, that was our last obstacle between us and the final step of our journey. The Pokemon League looms over us, and the vibes are shaky at best. We've got 5 of the most cheerful Pokemon I could find in the region, and also Winter, whose frown is still frozen in place. I really thought she'd be friendlier by now, but I can't say she hasn't pulled her weight, as she's really started to snowball since evolving. We're carrying the standard Curse, Earthquake, and Ice Beam, but I've also thrown in Avalanche via TM as a physical stab option, which was gifted from Candace. It's a set that should carry us far, but we're not going all the way without some help. Will Winter ever cheer up, or will the Elite Four stop us cold? Only one way to find out. Let's do this. Looks like we're starting in alphabetical order with Aaron, and Winter takes the helm against Yanmega. We're surprisingly able to outspeed this thing, and I take it out with a single Ice Beam. But Aaron's actually got some pretty gnarly bugs, so I let Boots eviscerate his Scizor with a Flare Blitz. Drapion enters, and I call in Carol, who I've taught a new move in Trick Room, a move which lets the slower Pokemon act first. This means that when I throw Winter back in and set up curses, we actually appreciate the speed drop, at least for 5 turns. Unfortunately, we do get crit by a Cross Poison, so I cut my losses and take it out with an EQ. Heracross is next, and our Trick Room expires, but thanks to our defense boosts, Winter can just barely live a Stone Edge and turn the tables with an Avalanche. 1 Pokemon left in Vespiquen, but Winter is out of gas, and Boots can finish the fight. Not a bad showing against a neutral matchup. It's nice to see all the things we can do by controlling our stats with Trick Room. Okay, onward. Up next is Bertha, and Ice Beam. Just Ice Beam. Glalie's stats are nothing special, but it's one of the only special attacking ice types in Sinnoh with enough special attack and speed to solo this fight, so I will give it that. But then again, most water types could just do this with Surf. Sorry Bertha, you're getting bounced. Our next fight isn't going to be so easy as we'll have to face Flint and his fire types, but Winter can actually stunt on Flint's first few Pokemon, outspeeding Houndoom and Flareon to take them out with Earthquake. Even Rapidash isn't fast enough for us, but it does survive on a Sliver to set up the Sun. Flint heals next turn, but we do find the high roll to finish it off. Infernape is next up, and unfortunately, this thing is deadly. When boosted by the Sun, a single Flare Blitz is enough to stop us in our tracks. Luckily, the tide is high, as we've got a Whiscash capable of taking fire attacks for days. Sure, he could fall to a Flamethrower, but that just wouldn't be very cash money of him, would it? Right there when we need him, Yuletide turns the tides and gets us through safely. Lucian is last up, and he's a serious challenge. Mr. Mime is first, and he gets off Reflect, but we're a mixed attacker, so we handle it well. But Bronzong is a seriously annoying Pokemon to fight, so I tag in Carol to get off a Yawn to stall a Reflect. Eventually, we get Boots on the ground, and he can blow it away with Flare Blitz. This calls out Espeon, who can basically outspeed and two-shot my entire team. I decide to let Boots take the fall here after a Mach Punch. Tinsel is sent out, but all he can even do is get off a Yawn before he falls as well. This is getting sweaty, and I can only hope that Winter can handle it. We get off a Heck and then a Dam, and fortunately, Espeon stays asleep long enough, but at +2, I won't push my luck, and we take it out. Gallade storms in and hits a hard Stone Edge, but we avoid the crit and hit back with Avalanche, which is enough to take it out at double power. Alakazam is last, and we can breathe a sigh of relief as it whiffs the Focus Blast, sneaking us through the Elite Four by the skin of our teeth. It's fights like this where I wish I gave us something like Ice Shard, but I just thought that would be too broken with combo with Curse plus Intimidate. Just goes to show how hard this game is sometimes. And it's only gonna get harder as we step into our final fight against Champion Cynthia, and it's up to Boots to start us off on the right foot. A couple of Flare Blitzes are able to make quick work out of Spiritomb, but we are taking substantial damage in the process. As Milotic steps in, there's really not much I can do here other than let Boots get one last kick in before going down. That's a bit of a downer, but Joy can pick us back up. With the Choice Specs equipped, she packs just enough of a punch to finish it off. But of course, that just baits in Garchomp. Luckily, we can always count on Carol, who dodges the Earthquake thanks to Levitate. Carol's Swan Song is going to be setting up her trap card one last time, setting up Trick Room just before getting demolished. Finally, winter has come, and we're gonna need to get off a quick Frig, but we can't dawdle too long or else the Trick Room will end. She wears a Flamethrower comfortably before piercing Garchomp right through the heart. This baits in Lucario, but we are a step quicker with Trick Room, and so we can dust it with an Earthquake. But out comes Togekiss as the Trick Room wears off, which means we're in trouble. Our opponent outspeeds and hits a hard Aura Sphere, but we do hold on to clap back with an Avalanche, bringing it down. One Mon remaining, and that's Roserade. Despite the good type matchup, we're actually in a pretty tough spot here as she counters all 4 of my remaining Pokemon. An Ice Beam won't kill, but a negative priority Avalanche will. Winter is cornered, but once again, the rest of her team takes the fall for her as Joy steps in, locking herself into Light Screen and falling on the sword. But it's all for naught if Winter can't lock it down. She steps in and gets hit with an incoming Sludge Bomb, and the Winter Warrior wears it, landing the Avalanche to bury it. It was a hard-fought win until the very end, but we've won. Our holiday spirit has seen us through, and I couldn't be any prouder of everyone on this team. So Winter, how about it? Can you give us a smile? Damn, I really thought that'd do it. I guess we never really asked Winter if she wanted to come on this journey in the first place. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be alone. Winter, I'm sorry I tried to turn you into something you weren't. If you'd like to be on your own now, go ahead. Thank you for all you've done for us, and we'll always remember you. I'm not really sure how I feel about that run. I was worried I'd made Glalie too strong with Intimidate and Curse, and was kind of relieved that it was balanced pretty well in the end. We weren't running through any fights, and had to work as a unit to overcome the truly tough ones. In the end, I feel like we turned a B- Pokemon into a B+. I guess what's getting my goat is that we weren't doing much that a regular Glalie couldn't do. We already had Ice Beam, Avalanche, and Earthquake before, and that was our main bread and butter the whole way through. If I could go back, I probably would have given us Ice Shard in place of Icy Wind maybe, or maybe as a relearn move just to make a bit more of a difference. I don't think it would have been too strong like I was fearing, at least not in Platinum, because this is a very tough game. I haven't run through it on the channel in a while, and I can kind of see why I don't. It's obviously a great game, and I personally love the challenge, but it's pretty hard to make a Pokemon look good in Sinnoh, and I'll have to make a mental note that I'll need to give a Pokemon a little bit more oomph to keep up in a game like this. Anyway, it was still a fun one. I love my ice types, and I love Sinnoh. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for me on the year. If you're interested, I'm going to be rambling for a bit about where I'm at and where the channel's at, but if not, hey, thanks for being here this year, and all the best in 2026. So, here we are at the end of 2025. Firstly, hey, thank you all very much for 25k subs. That is a big milestone, and it's a great feeling to finally make it here. My channel's growth has really slowed down these past couple years, so it was a year of throwing a lot of things at the wall and just seeing what stuck, which also helped keep it fresh for me. I'm really glad you guys liked the grass starter video in particular, because that was the one that made me realize I was ready to come back to YouTube. I know I want to make more like this one, but probably only like one per year because they take a while to make. Even that little heart scale guide was cool to discover along the way, and I'm glad it's helped so many people. I like making evergreen content like that. And of course, I'll always have a healthy dose of fixing Pokemon, and I've still got tons of Pokemon on the list. You may have noticed, but I do want to keep these condensed to like a 30 to 40 minute video like this. Keeping them a bit shorter helps me upload more frequently, and I can save the higher effort for larger projects. Work-wise, it's been a pretty exhausting year for me outside of YouTube, and the only reason I've been able to upload regularly is because I had half of the videos made already when I came back in June. Taking that break really did work well for me, and so I'll probably be taking it a bit slow to start 2026. I'd like to have another video by Valentine's Day if I can. There's your hint for the next Pokemon, by the way, but everything else probably won't be until the spring. I've still got a lot of scripts in the works for upcoming videos, big and small, so don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Now, usually I ask what Pokemon you guys want to see me cover, and you can still do that, but I also want to know what kind of content you guys want to see in general. If it's something more of what I've done in the past, or something completely new. Let me know what you guys want to see from this channel, and I'm happy to deliver. So yeah, there you go. I think it's been a pretty good year for Zen Mode, and I want to say, once again, with all my heart, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next year.